Hi everyone, thanks for watching. Today I'll show you how I built this large white box for my kids' toys and all the other things. So I started with a 4x8 sheet of plywood that was 3/4 inch wide, thick. And I used my circular saw to cut out the sides and the bottom of the box. I kind of just winged it here on the dimensions. I didn't really properly calculate it, but overall it came out to be about 48 inch. The box came out to be 48 inches long by 22.5 inches wide, about 18 inches deep. Once I had all the pieces cut out, I started attaching them together. Here, I glue them. I use the nail gun to keep them in place while I drill holes and put in through some longer screws for some extra stability. After the sides were set up, I dropped in the bottom and screwed it in. I wanted to create some decorative panels on the box, so what I did is I used a lot of my leftover scrap 2x4s, and I basically used my table saw to take away the curved edges, and then I ripped them to create about a half-inch thick panel boards, and then I cut them to length. After the panels were cut, I glued them to the box and using my nail gun to hold them in place while the glue dried. All right, so I came up to the other side of the chest and I noticed a big mistake that I was making. So you can see that the nails from the nail gun have been going through the interior and now they're sticking out. And you know what? I thought I measured the nails on the edge here, and it turns out that they were like just long enough to go through it. And so I'm using about an inch and a quarter nails. I needed really 1 inch. And another thing that I realized is that so here's the nails that I was using, and if I kind of here, they come right to the edge here. And so I should have used shorter nails and should have been more diligent about their length. But the reason this problem became even worse is because I have this knob on my nail gun, and this knob controls how far in the nails will go into the wood. And so I can turn it one way and then they'll be kind of sticking out a little bit. And then if I turn it the other way, they're gonna get like really recessed, kind of like this little guy right here. I mean, he's like goes inside the wood, right? And so this push into the wood combined with this length already being kind of stretching is I guess something to watch out for. And you know what, I've probably learned this lesson before and I just wasn't more careful. So what I'm planning to do is I'm gonna finish nailing these. I ran into the store and I picked up 1 inch long nails that I'll be able to finish this up with. And then I'm probably just gonna try to bang these nails out and see what I can kind of salvage on this when I'm finishing the project. So learn on my mistake, check the nail length and check the knob and the nail gun, whatever it's called. All right, so we have this chest, this side, and what I want to do is I want to take this panel, I want to put it right here in the middle, just because I think it'll look good. But the thing is, how do I know where to put it? Where is the absolute center, right? So to do that, what we do is we take the measurement over our whole distance, right? So in this case, this is exactly 44 inches. And then I take the width of the post, 3. So 44 inches minus 3 is 41, divided by 2 is 20.5. So that means I need 20.5 inches from each side. So I can come in here and I can put put a marker in here, and I can count 3 inches. So 1, 2, 3. So that's where it'll end. And then I can quickly check my work by checking the measurement on the other side. Yep, 20.5. Good to go. All right, so I'm sure you've noticed, and I wasn't gonna say anything, but I didn't make very accurate cuts when I cut these pieces out, and so I see these gaps here, you know, of course I want to fix that, right? And so there's gaps here. These ones I'm not too concerned about because there's going to be another piece that's going to go over here when we make the table legs. I mean the legs for this whole thing. But you know, for these gaps specifically, I just want to cover them up, right? And so I got this wood sealer. I mean this wood filler. Blah. Getting late. Can't talk today. This wood filler, and so I'm just gonna try it out and just fill this in and see how it turns out. So this was my first time using wood filler. So I started with a taping knife, but after a while I realized it's just much easier for me to use my finger to kind of spread it around and get it in all the corners. Overall, in retrospect, it would have been much better for me to just go back and cut, you know, some additional pieces that were the right length. But you know, it is what it is. After all the wood filler was in, I went through and I started cleaning up the nails that went through the box. I used the nail to use the hammer to hammer them out and then pull them out with my pliers. Alright, so I just sanded this chest down a little bit and it's pretty much ready to go. So now I'm going to take this small trim and I'm just going to line up the insides of these blocks right here. So I'm going to cut a bunch of 45-degree miter corners like this and just you know, fill it all. So this took me a while and I actually ran out of trim halfway through and I had to go and get some more lows. I used about 5 or 6 pieces of 6-foot trim. One thing that I would do differently is I would gently sand this before I actually put it on the box. You will see later that when I painted, the paint doesn't, I guess, go between the trim and the box very well, and you can kind of see it. So I think sanding it would help. Alright, so I watched a video by John Peterson about how to make legs for a chest like this. And I'm going to copy his design and I'm going to explain here how it works, but then I'm also going to add a link here to his video where I learned this thing. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to cut, I'm going to mill down some 2x4s into these dimensions. And essentially we're going to have a 1 3/4 of an inch long by half an inch wide board, and then another one that's 1 1/4, and then they're gonna come up at an angle like this, and then there's gonna be a solid 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 square that's gonna go in the middle. And so this whole thing needs to be about 20 inches long. I measured the dimensions of my box and it's 18 inches, and so this will give me 2 inches for the actual leg on the bottom of the box, and then I'm gonna cut them a little bit longer, so in case I make a mistake, I can go and chop some off the top. So I'm gonna cut them about maybe 21 inches initially. And so the way that this will work, and I already have a pieces that are already cut up here, is this is the longer board, and this is the shorter board. They're gonna come up like this. The square one, the square piece is gonna go right here, and it's gonna be about 2 inches worth of it. And then this is gonna go along the entire side of the chest. After I had all the side pieces for the legs cut, I went through and I cut 2 inches of inside block that I had already had created from a different project. Then I went through and started gluing all the legs together. Alright, so now it's time to attach the legs. This process is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to measure it, draw a line over here as to where the leg ends, and then I'm going to cut it up and then glue it and just nail it. Now I'm done with the trim. It took a while, but now every single one of these panels have this nice trim running around. Now I nailed the trim in, and one of the things that happened is the nail didn't go all the way through, and so a piece of it is sticking out. Yeah, I can show you. So in this case right here, we have this nail sticking out, and if I come in here with a hammer and hit it now, then what's going to happen is the hammer is going to leave an imprint on the trim, and I would like to avoid that. And so what I can do here is I can take a nail, and they actually sell things that you can use for this, but I'm just going to use a nail and just put a nail on top of this this thing that's sticking out and just gently tap it. And now it's in. And you can see the rest of the trim is still kind of intact. So I got a couple of these. I'm going to go around and I'm going to finish this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with my wood filler again. And I'm going to plug in these holes for the nails, so that when I paint it, it looks a little bit cleaner. Alright, so now I have holes patched up. I got all the nails in. It's drying now. While that's drying, one thing I wanted to do too is, so I didn't glue this in, I just screwed it in. So I have a bunch of screws going through like this. I wanted to add a little bit of additional support, right? So I'm not exactly sure what this will be used for, but I have a bunch of kids, and it's pretty likely that they will climb in here and start jumping at some point. Maybe not right away, but eventually that day will come. So I'm going to mount the support bar, probably lengthwise like this, just for some additional support, so it's a little bit more sturdy so the bottom doesn't fall out through it. So to attach the extra support for the bottom, I went through on the inside of the box and I measured equal distance from each side, and I drilled the holes through. I came on the other side of the box and kind of cleaned up the holes. Then I put in the support to cover the holes and to be straight, and I nailed it in place with my nail gun to hold it temporarily. Then I came on the other side and then put a few screws through it. Okay, so here we are. I just sanded it with 120 grit, and then went through and gave it another quick sand at 220 grit. So everything is pretty much done. It's ready to go. There's last piece that I'm going to do is put on this top trim to hide this end grain. And for this I have 1 by 3 inch poplar boards. So now I'm going to cut them to size and just glue them on here. So this sounds like a pretty straightforward step. All I had to do is take the poplar that I had, measure and cut each side of it at 45 degrees. But even at this, I ended up making a bunch of mistakes, and you will see soon what kind of issues I run into. All right, so I finished the miter corners here, and I made a mistake measuring. And my mistake was that my degrees were not calibrated exactly on my miter saw. It was off by about 1 degree or 2 degree, which caused me some issues all around these corners. And so finally, and I also cut one of these pieces a little bit too short. Anyway, so I don't want to go and chop another piece of wood off, so I'm just going to try to fix this one. So what I've done is I created a small little piece like this on my miter saw that should kind of fit in here. And so, see how it goes. There we go. So, not super cool, but I'm gonna just sand off and make it the best that it can be. All right, so the top is ready. I filled in the holes from the nails with some wood filler, as well as this treble corner too. I put that spacer block in there, and then I try to even it out. I figure it's good enough for government work. So now this whole thing has been sanded, and the next step is we're gonna paint it. All right, so we finished putting the first coat of paint on the box. We painted inside and the outside. So the paint is still kind of drying. Overall, I think it looks pretty good. It's going to look a lot better after a couple more coats of paint. I'm using just regular interior semi-gloss white paint. This is, by the way, the problem corner here, so I'd say it doesn't look too bad. This is the paint that I was using. Alright, so this is after the second coat of paint. The paint is still drying on it, but overall I think it's looking better and better. The paint was able to hide a lot of the mistakes that I made. However, a lot of things are still kind of showing through. So for example, this corner, of course, still visible, as well as where I used the wood filler to fill in certain areas, that is also visible. One thing that I kind of regret is picking such a white color. I think it would have looked better if it was maybe like a shade of white, more like a creamy color. This just looks, extremely bright. Here's one of the areas that I mentioned, right? So I put the wood filler in here because these boards weren't quite lining up. And so you can still see that it's not it's not very flush. Also, it's kind of hard to get the paint between the trim and the actual wood. And I think now that it's all painted, the trim looks so tiny that it really doesn't stand out as much as I would like to. So I think on my next project, one thing that I would do differently, aside from picking the different colors, I would also pick a trim that was a little bit larger. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I know that I definitely learned a lot while I was building this thing. As we kind of finish up, I'd like to outline a couple more lessons learned and things that I'd keep in mind if I was doing this again. So first is, I guess, plan out your plywood a little bit more. This box came out kind of gigantic. I probably would be fine if it was a little bit smaller, and then I would also have enough plywood left over for the lid. So that's the first thing. A little bit more planning ahead of time in terms of your cuts. The box has this trim and this kind of pattern on all four sides. And if I, did more planning in the beginning and I knew where I was going to put the box and kind of how I was going to use it, I could have probably saved myself a little bit of time by leaving one of the sides just blank, because that would be like the side that would be like, let's say, facing the wall or something like that, so nobody would see that. And so that's about it. I think overall it came out pretty good. The paint didn't really hide as much stuff as I hoped it would. So some of the small seams that are over here that are not really lining up because my cuts were a little bit sloppy. I thought that the paint would kind of hide that, and along with the wood filler. It did do a good job, but it didn't hide nearly as much as I thought it would. So just something to keep in mind for next time. If you guys like this video and want more videos like this, where I go over all the things that I learned and all the stupid mistakes that I made, subscribe and support my channel. Thank you.